So I guess it's 11:01 my time in Birmingham, Alabama. I'd like to welcome absolutely everyone. I hope you can all hear me well, and if not, let us know if there are any technical difficulties. Thank you very, very much for participating in this Cytopathology Program Directors Town Hall meeting. I'd like to first introduce our most amazing and newest ASC President, Dr. Christine Booth, which many of you already know for her amazing career. So I won't delay. I won't do this grand rounds massive introduction, but she is here with us to get us started.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosenblum. I do want to welcome all of you today, and good afternoon from Cleveland, Ohio. Good morning to those of you who are further west. Again, thank you. I am a former program director. It's been a while since I've been a fellowship program director. I know there has been a lot of work. Many, many years ago, I started working on this as working with the Association of Pathology Chairs, Fellowship Directors Ad Hoc Committee, probably over 10 years ago on this. And I know it's been a little bit tumultuous over the past year, trying to work with the common timeline and doing different things. But I do want you to know that you have the support of the ASC leadership in going toward this match where we would like to see this head. But I thank you for joining us today and for taking the time to really listen to what's going on in the various subspecialties of pathology as far as what's going on in the match and other areas and how it's been going, and to really take a look at it and think about it for your institution and for the greater good. And finally, I want to thank you all for all that you do for the trainees and for our future cytopathology leaders. So thanks for being here.
All right, Jamie, we are ready for our PowerPoint. And again, thank you so much to everyone for taking the time to join us on this super important town hall. We are very happy to have you all with us. All right. So this town hall is going to give us this amazing opportunity to discuss and answer every single question that you might have right now, live, or if you think about it later, then we'll gladly get back to you also when it comes to a formal match for recruitment. So we will go over a brief review of what we've done before and where we are now. We'll also have an overview of the current match process that has happened for other subspecialties, like Dr. Booth said. And of course, the most important time, having time for discussion and questions and closing us off with a super important vote for all of the program directors. Next slide.
Sorry, I'm going to reshare this. Hold on one second. Sorry about that.
We're so close.
Thank you. I think you put in the show
There we go.
mode this time.
How's that?
Okay, great. Next slide.
Have to start from the
There we
beginning.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of this conversation that we're having now is not a new issue. You have all been part of this for many, many years. You know that the current process has inequities and dissatisfaction on both sides for both the future fellows, current residents, and for us as well. You all know that trainees have to apply super, super early and have to make these big decisions much earlier in their career than they would actually like. And with the super incredible market that we have right now, some of those that make these decisions early end up changing their mind. So there comes some dissatisfaction for us. And of course, programs have to be super aggressive in pursuing what we think are the best applicants for our program. So we have to interview them more than 2 years ahead of time, and they have to accept the offers right after the interviews because they don't want to lose this position. So we underwent in 2022 and 23 the common timeline. We tried the common timeline, and then that didn't end up working as well as we wanted it. So we went back to an unstructured process last year, which we will call the Wild West. Everything was happening, everyone was doing whatever they wanted. And so we all know this. Next slide. And so based on that, based on what happened before, the 2 years of common timeline and then doing whatever we wanted, we sent you guys all a survey in January of this year. And we had 68%, 68 programs that responded. So about 78%, which is amazing considering how bad it was before. So we were happy with participation, but we want more of you. We want all of you. We want to hear from all of you. And so that's why we have the town hall now. And what I want you to know is that even though we have 87, actually 91 programs right now, 103 fellowship positions were available at the time. And most of our programs do have 1 or 2 fellowship positions, with few having more than that.
Thank you. I'll take from here next. So you've heard me saying this several times. The survey we sent in January 2025 showed that on this group of responders, there was a slight stronger support for a match. So on a three-way tie, when we asked to compare common timeline, unstructured recruitment, and match, 48.5% of the responders would have preferred a match over the other two processes. When we asked directly about if the program would definitely or probably participate if a match was available, and 75% of our programs had agreed to participate, we had 71% of the responders of the survey in January responding yes, which amounted to 54% if we had put in the denominator all cytopathology fellowship programs. So we fell short a little bit right after the survey, and that was the reason in 2025 we didn't push anything, and for the academic year of 2027, 28, we recruited on an unstructured way, which Dr. Rosenblum has called Wild West, was dealer's choice. However, doesn't work for anybody. Both programs and applicants were dissatisfied with the process. So can I have next? So the Association of Academic Pathology has been very supportive of moving towards a match program for recruitment. And the Forum of Subspecialty Leadership on that association is the Committee of Fellowship Directors. Dr. Paul Statz, who I will introduce in a minute, serves as the chair for that committee, has been champion in organizing a fellowship recruitment through a match. A statement of support was signed by several pathology organizations. That was in the summer, and that included the American Board of Pathology and our society, the American Society of Cytopathology, as well. So can I have the next one? So after Dr. Paul Statz give us an overview and an update of the current process with the other subspecialties, we're going to open to proceed to a formal vote. Will be a yes or no to a formal MRNP match for recruiting for the academic year 2028-2029. And the vote will be open because of the holidays in the middle. We realize that some people are traveling and are not available. We'll leave it open until January 15. But we'll monitor very close. And I have to say, we'll track you down because we need to have 100% responders. So, and Dr. Booth, after learning more about the process, I think nothing is perfect. It's not going to solve all the issues we have. However, I do believe, honestly, this is the way that we should go because you will be a more fair and equitable process, and it will delay the decision for fellowships to later on the training, which to me is the right thing to do for our trainees. So if we succeed in gathering this commitment of 75% of our programs, we will need a memorandum of understanding signed by the end of January. And again, we will be tracking you down. So I'm just like saying, just comply up front. And this will need to be signed by the program directors indicating the commitment and no offers that they agree that no offers are done before the match process starts. And if Dr. Stats doesn't go over the timeline for that, I will. I now have the pleasure to introduce Paul, who is probably sick of hearing from us. He is a professor of pathology and he is the department chair of the University of Maryland. I think many of you already know him, and he does serve as the chair for the Fellowship Directors Committee at the Association of Academic Pathology. So I will let Paul now give us an update with the current process, how the challenges, opportunities, and how the other subspecialties are currently on this process. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diva. Happy to be here. Are my slides projecting properly? Great. It's supposed to be there.
It's actually showing all of them, Paul. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Scanning through the list of participants, I realized how long it's been. But I actually started down this road as a cytopathology fellowship director, and my first time on the fellowship directors committee, then the fellowship directors ad hoc committee was as a Cyto program director, and then I ended up with ADASP and ended up in the surgical pathology side of the Fellowship Directors Committee, and now I'm chair of that committee. But it's been a couple of years since I gave up my position as Fellowship Director. I'm one of you in spirit, at least. So I'm going to go through some basics and some of what we've learned over the years. I have a lot of slides. I'm going to move pretty quickly through them because I want to give lots of time for questions, but I also want to make sure everybody's heard this. The things that are in here at least once, at least very quickly. So key requirements for NRP match, 75% of all active programs and 75% of all active positions have to agree to participate. NRP requires both. The reason they require that is that they have found that if you try to undertake a match with less than that level of participation, it tends to not work very well. Which I think is something we saw with Common Timeline when we went through that, is that areas that tried to do it with around 50% participation, it didn't work so well. So there needs to be a sponsoring society, which would be the ASC in your case, and so I'll leave it at that. Programs must be ACGME accredited or affiliated with an ACGME accredited residency. The match calendar for pathology match is this is the 2026 calendar. This would be the 2027 match day for the 28-9 would be what you all are looking at. And so it may not be these exact days, but as a rough approximation, you are now making promises for that won't really come into effect until April of 2027, which will be the first real meaningful day. So match opens February 4th, ranking opens March 11th, but you don't actually have to do anything until April 1st, which is when you define how many positions you're going to be offering that year. So that's one question that comes up very often is, I'm promising a certain number of positions right now. What you're promising right now is your best guess as to the number of positions you expect to be offering in that year. We know that finances change, situations change, and the reality is that up until 1 month out, you have the ability to choose how many positions you are going to be filling that year. You are required to put all of the positions that you're going to be filling through the match, but you decide how many positions that's going to be a month out from match day, basically. And then you put your rank order list in about 2 weeks before match day. And then the match day itself is around about May 1st each year. It moves around a little bit depending on the calendar. There's a certain, I think, day of the week that they like to do these matches. And so the exact date will be determined, but it's essentially 14 months out from the start of fellowship. And so you would be matching in May of 2027 for the 2028-29 season. So you push your recruiting almost a full year back from where you are now. So how does match actually work? it's a computer algorithm, obviously, and the way it works is it just starts grabbing applicants' rank lists, and it tentatively puts each applicant it comes to into their first choice program that also ranked them. If it comes to a program that's, as it works through the system, as it comes to a program that is full, it looks at all of the applicants that are currently tentatively assigned to that program and sees which one the applicant, which one the program is ranked higher. And if the new person coming in is ranked higher than somebody else who's on the list, it bumps out the lowest ranked person on the list. And that person, that applicant, it then goes through and looks back at their second choice and assigns them to that program if that program is interested in them. And it works this way iteratively through all of the applicant rank lists until it is assigned a match to every applicant. There's a great little video on the NRP's website that I recommend looking at if you're confused about this. But that's it in a nutshell. And I think the most important couple of things to take from that I've seen come up fairly commonly is the idea, well, what if we get ranked with somebody we didn't want? It's impossible. You cannot be ranked. You cannot be assigned an applicant who is not on your rank list. You will go unfilled if they work through your entire rank list and none of those people want to be at your program. You will not be assigned someone who you did not put on your rank list. You are also guaranteed, if you think through this algorithm, to get the applicants that are highest on your rank list who also wanted to come to your program. That's the way it works. It guarantees both that the applicants will get the program that they most want, who wants them, and that the programs will get the applicants that they most want, who want them. That is what they mean when they say that it guarantees a best fit match. And that is really the fundamental value of the match, as opposed to any other mechanism by which you can fill fellows. You are guaranteed to get the applicant you want most, who wants you. Okay, advantages to programs. It establishes certainty about when to make offers, right? There's one date, you fill out your rank list, and that's it. So you're not going to miss candidates because your offer came too early. You're not going to miss candidates because your offer came too late. It streamlines timing of reviewing applications and holding interviews. It doesn't really matter when you hold your interviews. It doesn't really matter when people apply because there's just this rank list date, and you time it how it works best for your program. And you don't have to worry about somebody getting away because somebody else snapped them up first. It's likely to be significantly less likely that an applicant accepts and then withdraws. There are two reasons for that. Number one is that the match is a binding agreement, and so the applicant and the program are both committing to fulfilling that match. There are ways to get a waiver to that, but short of getting a waiver to that, the applicant is bound to come to your program. The reality is that the enforcement mechanisms on the applicant are somewhat limited. There are things that can be done, and we can talk about that later, but they're not as effective as the binding on the program. But it provides a lot more than what we have today. The other key thing is it's a much later timeline. That extra 9 to 12 months between when you're making that commitment and when you're fulfilling that commitment is likely to cause fewer changes in life circumstances. It also increases access to a greater diversity of candidates because you're going to have some folks who go to their first interview, get an offer, and then come off the market before they ever get to you, and you don't get to see them. It also eliminates the scramble of filling spots, either in the current unstructured, I like to call it, rather than Wild West, but the unstructured current process. You're rushing to beat everybody else to interview your favorite applicants. Even in the common timeline where there's not that rush of interviews, there's the rush of trying to fill those positions. If your first choice were to turn you down, that's gone in the match. You fill out your rank list, you wait 2 weeks, and you get your assignment. And we talked about the match algorithm assuring programs will fill with the best applicant who wants to be at their program. For applicants, the delayed start allows them time to make a more informed choice of subspecialty. I think the more we see applications moving into earlier and earlier into second year, the more I think that subspecialties that tend not to get scheduled until the second year, potentially late in the second year, potentially lose applicants just because they don't even know that they might be interested in the specialty. And I think, areas like cytopathology, hematopathology, neuropathology, renal pathology are really seeing difficulty attracting applicants. To my mind, some of that I think is that they all get lots of GI pathology in their first year, and they know that, and they feel comfortable with that, and so they go apply for GI fellowships instead of applying for the fellowships that might be more interesting to them if they had a little more time. And so I think we're potentially, as a field, impacting the way that residents choose their fellowships by the fact that we're pushing this timeline so very early right now. It eliminates pressure for a trainee to immediately accept an offer. Markedly reduces the likelihood a trainee will make a decision that they later regret or reverse, and again, ensures that the applicant will match with the program that they most prefer. Disadvantages, it does require more interviews than the approach of taking the first person you interview. That's real. That's also something that would happen in the common timeline. So I think folks who've been through the common timeline are not necessarily going to see that as I don't see any reason it should be a requirement for more interviews than the common timeline process did. It does require a minimum number of participating programs, which in turn means, and I know this is something that bothers folks, but we'll talk about this in a little more detail in a little bit. In order to get to the 75% of positions, there's just no way any subspecialty in pathology is going to get there without requiring internal applicants to be routed through the match. There's just too many matches with your own program in pathology for it to be done any other way. And that has turned out not to be that big a deal. We'll talk about how heme and molecular felt about that in a little bit. A sense, at least, of reduced independence. You kind of turn in this list and you see what you get, and you can't kind of do it whenever you want. You have to do it on the timeline that they set. I think the advantages significantly offset that, to my mind. And obviously, just like common timeline, a match can't force programs to participate. And the more programs participate, the better it works for applicants and for other programs. And we'll talk about the perceived advantage of non-participant programs in a little bit as well. And then there's some monetary costs, which I think is my next slide. So they're not too bad. For applicants, first off, most applicants will only pay the single registration fee of $75, and that's it. If you're matching as a couple, there's additional $45 per partner. If you're ranking more than 20 programs in cytopathology, you're probably overdoing it, frankly. But there is an additional expense if you want to rank that many programs. In terms of programs, there's an institutional registration fee of $300. This is for a single match day for a single institution. And so if your institution is already participating in the heme math or the match or the molecular match or the bone and soft tissue match or any of the other pathology groups that have gone to a match, you do not pay this again. That's already being paid by the institution. So if you're in one of those programs that already has somebody else participating in the pathology match, you're going to pay $100 for your program. That's technically per track, but for the vast majority of programs, one track, one program. And then you will pay $85 per certified position. So when you go and put in your number of positions on April 1st, that's when you're defining how much you're going to pay. So for most programs with a single fellow, it's going to be $185. If you have no other fellowships and a single program, it's $485. And obviously, if you have more positions, it grows. But I think really not enormous. And most GME offices, as I understand it, pay this for fellowship matches, and they will be familiar with this because almost every specialty other than pathology is participating in an NRP match, and so they will be used to paying these fellowship match fees. This won't be a surprise to the institution in most cases. A note about internal applicants. Like I said, we're not going to be able to reach participation thresholds without routing internal applicants through the match. This doesn't mean you can't offer to internal applicants. If you have an internal applicant that you really think is a good match for your program, it is entirely legitimate to tell them that you will rank them to match. If that's a single fellowship program, that means telling them you're ranking them first. But anywhere that you're promising them in a rank. You have to mean that. You can't lie. But if you tell them we think you'd be great, we want you to be here, we're going to rank you number one on our rank list. Because of the way the algorithm works, if they are ranking you number one as well, you cannot fail to match. So you will match with each other. You can't ask them, you can't make that contingent, and you can't ask them. You can't say, if you're willing to come here, we would be happy to rank you first. You can't say, we're ranking you first, so what are you doing? But most applicants will answer you and will say, yes, I want to be here and I'm going to rank you first, or will say, that's great, I really appreciate that. I'd like to explore my options and let you know closer to the match what I'm going to be doing there. If they're exploring their options, you would need to do other interviews. But it's better to have gone through this process and have that information in advance than to have it sprung on you when they suddenly when you are assuming they're coming and they suddenly tell you they're going somewhere else. So I think it's a good conversation to have anyway. And so that's basically how you handle these internals is you have to pay your fee, they have to pay their fee, you go through the match and you guarantee to match each other if you both want to be there. And went the wrong way. So I will say when we get to the survey results for hemomolecular programs, I'll point out they thought this worked great for internal applicants, really high levels of satisfaction with this approach. Okay, so just to backing up a little bit, reminding us why we're doing this. We keep asking applicants, and I've gone back and looked at some of the older literature, and as far back as 20 or 30 years ago, it's exactly the same. We see roughly 85% of applicants saying the timeline is too early and the timeline is too disorganized. And they keep saying the same thing over and over again, and we're just not listening. Programs are frustrated too. We lose good applicants because of timeline uncertainty, and then we think we have an applicant and we lose them because they decide to do something else because we have a 2-year interval between when we make the offer and when they show up. And so it's not really working. If you're one of the folks who feels like it's working, I assure you you're in the minority. It's not really working well for most programs. It's not really working well for any applicants. So just, I will tell you, I started this process pitching this as this is what the data shows, and you should make your own decision. And the more and more data accumulates, the harder it gets to present an even case on this, because there's just overwhelming evidence at this point that match works better for everyone involved than any of the other processes that have been tried. The vast majority of fellowships in every specialty other than pathology use a match. Almost all of them use NRMP for that match. When programs go to match, they don't come back. The incidence in any area of medicine of a fellowship starting on a match and then reverting back to an unstructured process is vanishingly rare. There's like one recorded episode of this in the literature, and like 5 years later, they went back to match. Once you go to match, nobody comes back from it. The fellowships within pathology who've tried NRMP match are extremely satisfied, and I'll show you that data in some detail. The applicants who have tried NRMP match are extremely satisfied, and I'll show you that data as well. And again, even within pathology, every subspecialty that has gone to a match has stayed with the match, and the participation rates in the match have grown. The evidence is really overwhelming at this point. So just to give you a little background, this is the NRMP data on the subspecialties that went through match. A couple of things that often come up that I want to point out in this data. Number one is people say, well, it's only going to work if everybody participates. Look at the actual participation rates here. Other than bone and soft tissue pathology, all of them are in the 70s and low 80s. It works to everyone's satisfaction, even in the 75 to 100% range. You don't need 100% participation for this to be effective and to be substantial improvement over existing process. Number two, a lot of folks in a lot of subspecialties say, well, we have such a high unfilled rate, it's not going to work well for us. The unfilled rate is really high in every subspecialty in pathology except a couple. All of these subspecialties have a really high, have varying but pretty high unfilled rates, and it works fine. Okay, so program surveys. Molecular pathology, 65% of programs responded, including 7 non-participating programs to the survey. Hemopath, 50% responded, including 2 non-participant programs. Here's the data. Molecular genetics, 70% to 20% preferred match over unstructured. Heme path, 83 to 10. Match versus common timeline, 80% versus 0. In heme path, 90% versus 9. You'll notice these don't add up to 100. There was an option for indifferent, and the small percent that's missing is the indifferent. Overall satisfaction, 90 to 10 in molecular genetics, 88 to 5 in heme path. You just don't get these sorts of numbers for anything. I've done a lot of surveys. You never get over 90% for anything. If you ask the sky is blue, you don't get it 90%. Suitable for internal candidates, 100% said yes, 97% said yes. Fairer, 85 to 5, 90 to 5. Participate again, 84 to 16, 98 to 2. And both molecular genetics and heme path already have head counts for next year, and both of them have more programs participating next year than they did the first year. Other subspecialties. Bone and soft tissue only has 13 programs. They all loved it. They didn't bother doing a survey because there's too few programs. They're doing match again. Forensics is their third year of match. They don't ask anymore because it's just assumed that everybody's going to continue doing match because they all love it. They're continuing to do match. Applicant survey. Obviously, it's harder to get applicants. It's got 28% and 32% of applicants in heme and molecular. And I combined these results because they weren't really different between the two. Overall, how satisfied were you with the match process? 86% satisfied, 5% dissatisfied. Compared to the unstructured recruitment process, how satisfied are you with the match? 78% satisfied, 13% dissatisfied. Compared to the common timeline, 62% satisfied, 11% dissatisfied. The residents consistently like the common timeline better than the programs, but they're really happy with match. The previous speakers already alluded to the multi-society statement of support. I will say 13 societies, including APATH, the American Board of Pathology, and ASC, have signed on to the survey. I recommend taking a look at it, or signed on to the statement saying that they support the efforts of subspecialties to move in the direction of a match. So I encourage you to read the whole statement. Okay, so the biggest common concern I hear is, well, non-participant programs are going to have a huge advantage. And I don't know what it is in cytology, but I looked at this in surgical pathology. This was in 2023, we did a survey of both we had the common timeline data, but we did a survey of the non-participant programs and got almost 100% responses from them. And so we can actually compare. So among specialties, this is general surgical pathology in blue and gyne and breast pathology in orange. Among positions that were competitive, i.e. not filled with an internal applicant, the fill rate in general surgical pathology was actually lower for non-participant programs than it was for participant programs. I think this is residents expressing their preference for using the common timeline. We did a lot of talking about how there's plenty of space in general surgical pathology, and you can feel safe that you will get a good match in the common timeline, and I think that was effective. In gyne and breast pathology, there was much lower participation than there was in general surgical pathology that year. The numbers are almost identical. You can see that goes the other way. Non-participant were slightly more likely than participant, but essentially identical numbers in both of these. So I personally do not believe there's actually an advantage to non-participating programs being able to make offers earlier. I think residents are smarter than that. And the other thing is that you look at the satisfaction data among programs from heme path and molecular pathology, and what you see is that they were highly satisfied with this, even at 76% or so participation. And so I don't think that is in reality nearly the advantage that people fear it would be. So where are we right now across the board? Forensics, heme, molecular, bone and soft tissue, all continuing to do the match. Gynecologic pathology, gyne and breast pathology are all going to be going to a match. Breast pathology, I was just able to announce yesterday. And dermatopathology is still gathering votes. And so I think this is a direction that a lot of subspecialties are moving, and I think it's a direction that cytopathology should be making every effort to move on as well. So there's going to be a survey. I recommend you respond to it as soon as possible. It takes a lot of work for the organizers of this thing to hunt down individual programs who haven't responded yet. It really helps to get the answers in as quickly as possible. And I think the thing that has really made a difference in gynecologic and breast pathology has been program directors talking to each other, reassuring each other. And I strongly encourage, if you're someone on this call who is supportive of this, that you talk to fellow program directors that you know, and try to engage in a conversation about why this is good for everyone. So that's all I have. I know I'm probably way over time, but thank you.
No, thanks, Paul. This is very helpful. And we're going to open now for some questions and comments. There was one question on the chat while you're talking that asked if I am supportive of a match in general, but my fellowship already filled the position for the next 3 years. How should I vote this time? So Dr. Rosenblum said, if you are supportive, you should vote yes. We did separate participation from the number of positions, and because we're asking how many positions you'll be offering for 28, 29. So for that second question, then the program would put 0. But as a program, you are supportive of the whole subspecialty moving to a match process. I thank Dr. Prochorchik, who has put a link for a helpful match video on the chat, and I encourage everybody to see because it's very instructive. And if anybody has any questions or comments, we'll be happy to take now.
Yeah, so there are some questions coming in through the chat. Paul mentioned the couples match cost, but right now we don't have a couples match when it comes to cytopathology. But we eventually will at some point, but we have to start with a match to begin with. So I think that takes care of that question. And there are two more questions. Do you scramble after the match if unfilled? And is the survey vote anonymous? So
Yeah, if you're unfilled, and that's another advantage of the match, I think the MRNP will have the information available of unfilled programs, and that will be available for the applicants who have registered for the match. And if they did not, they were not matched somehow, that will be all centralized and available for the applicants and the program. So that centralization, I think, is another advantage. The vote is not anonymously. We are asking you to identify institution that you belong to, because we're going to need to follow that with a memorandum of understanding. So not anonymous.
and
Do
we
you
need
wanna-
to, yes, and we need to know which institutions are participating and which are not. So we need to make that data very clear and for everyone involved. Not to shame you in any way,
No.
but we really need clear data and to know who's participating, who's not, and what their choice is.
Mhm. Do you want to read the next one, Frida?
Yes. So another question is, our program is located in a state where many applicants are geographically restricted, and there are only 3 to 4 programs statewide. If the other programs choose not to participate in the fellowship match, and ours is the only one participating, I am concerned we may lose strong applicants who wish to remain in the state but prefer non-match options. How do we approach this scenario thoughtfully and strategically? Wow, that's a tough question.
Paul, do you want to take that, or you want us to?
So, I mean, th there will come specific situations like that. My recommendation would be that everyone votes in the survey how they wish things could be. Because if everybody starts protectively waiting until they see what everybody else is doing, we never get to anywhere. And so I would recommend you vote in the survey how you want. And if it turns out to be the case that all of the other programs in your geographic area are no's and you're a yes, you might have to politely decline. I think it's honestly fairly unlikely that it's not impossible, but it's fairly unlikely you'd get to a point of 75% of programs, 75% of participants, and coincidentally, none of the programs in a specific geographic area that has a lot of programs not participating, but it could happen. And I think everybody would understand if you had to change your vote at that point,
Mhm.
based on those considerations.
And
Thank you.
I would also say it would be very interesting to talk to the people around you and
Mhm.
ask what their concerns are, what their questions are. Why would they not support the match in a situation like this? And okay, how would it benefit any of us if we are not in the match versus in the match? And so having that
Mhm.
conversation with your colleagues would actually be very helpful because maybe
Yeah.
it's perception that is holding them back as opposed to real data like we have just been shown. So having that conversation can clear up the path for everyone being in the match. Okay,
It's
plenty
an
more
excellent point.
questions.
And
And we would be very happy. Frida and I are very happy and available to talk to anybody that got my personal email. Please reach out if there are concerns and questions after this town hall. The next one I think is hoping to address. The question is if somebody takes a job or another fellowship outside the match, are they still bind to the match?
so they are legally bound to take that offer. Functionally, the enforcement mechanism the NRMP has is primarily that they can ban you from future matches. And so if you're going to get a job or a terminal fellowship, that's not a huge stick for an applicant. I think the more important piece of that, I think to some degree, the fact that they've signed a binding commitment may cause some people to feel more obligated to fulfill it. I think the more important part is that you're doing it almost a year later, and so they're much less likely to go looking for other options and taking them.
Mhm. And the next question is regarding a GME office in everybody's institution, asking if they need approval of the graduate medical education office to vote for this. I would say if you have other fellowships and they are already participating on the match, like a lot of the institutions that have cytopathology also have hematopathology and molecular pathology. I don't think you need to confirm, but if you feel better, please, by all means. Talking from my own institution, I received an email and said, we support this. So that's how we would like you to vote. And, you
Yes,
know, so,
talking to your GME office never hurts, just for
yeah.
confirmation. And you can always present supporting evidence that our own societies support the process with the statement that was signed. So that could be helpful
Mhm.
on your behalf to support the match if you want it, and to show that the GME office that it's worthwhile. And also, like we said, most of the other specialties in your hospital already have a match, or your clinical subspecialties. So the fact is that GME is more likely than not already supporting match processes in other specialties.
Mhm. So we have a question here that says, what if we don't get applicants or are without a fellow, and then we get an applicant just before July 1st? What should we do? And we have very strong programs around us, so they frequently, they're on that position, so they get last minute. If I understood correctly, and Paul can correct me, after the match, the you can fill your unfilled position. The MRNP does not govern the scramble, if you will. Paul, please.
Yes, that's correct. So I think that's a really important point to make, is that the NRMP commitment is up until that match day. And if you are unfilled after that match day, it becomes just like the old residency
Mhm.
scramble, where you are just searching for whatever applicants are out there, and any program and any applicant can can match up with each other at any time. There's no structural rules to that anymore. The one difference is that you actually get a list of the applicants who didn't match and
Mhm.
the applicants who didn't match get a list of the programs who are unfilled. And so it's a much easier process for those
Mhm.
folks to find each other. It doesn't work perfectly in the sense that, like, if somebody doesn't match to a specialty that's not using, GI pathology, for example, is not planning to go forward with match in 27. If you have somebody who doesn't get into GI and is like, well, now I want to do cyto, you won't get their name, obviously, because they're not in match. But you will get all the folks, if derm goes forward with match, you will get all the folks who don't match in derm. And conversely,
Mhm.
they will have access publicly to the list of programs that are unfilled. I think it will make it much easier to find, for applicants to know who still has positions, and for programs to find applicants for those positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that just answers the other question that was in the chat, which is very similar. What if someone decides to do the Cyto Fellowship at the last minute, like they lose a job they thought they had? If the program has any unfilled spot, can they do it? Absolutely. So
Yes.
the match just until match timeline. After that, you can fill with anyone who is available and the data is available. Yes.
For that year.
Yes,
And
for
then
that
it
specific.
will reset for the following year.
Correct.
So then,
Yay. Any more questions? Bring them. Bring them.
yeah, taking advantage. We're all here to
I
Yes.
answer.
see, I see Galiza's hand.
Yes.
Thank you. Here, let me lower that hand first. First of all, thank you to Diva and Frida for putting this town hall together. This is a lot of effort. And secondly, thank you to Paul to getting all this data and sharing it to us. From a program director's standpoint, I really don't think there's anything to think about. I think we should all say yes to the dress because we've been trying to do this for a number of years. I remember this first came into the CAP committee. Gosh, it was when I was a resident some 1,000 years ago. At that point, the residents were pushing it, but the people on the top, us, were saying no because, it was a little bit different timeline. Right now, I think it would be more equitable for all of us to be on board. And if all of us
Mhm.
here on this Zoom says yes, then it makes Diva and Frida's job much easier. And then we can actually go ahead with this process. I do have one small question and maybe a comment associated with it, if, yes or no.
Mhm.
So when we're doing the match, are we in the match together with everybody else, meaning the derm, the heme, everybody? Yes, I see the shaking heads. Yes. So to me, isn't that the best way to do something? For instance, somebody wants to do cytopath, and then if it doesn't work cytopath in Massachusetts, maybe the next line is they want to do GI path in California. I don't know why they want to do that, but they do that. So they could like line it up in such a way. Isn't that better for the residents? Weren't we all residents at some point, maybe thinking about that? So that's where I'm going to leave it.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And so that's, from the resident's perspective, any of the specialties that are participating in match, with that same date, it's all one match. So if the resident wants to, say, do, gyne pathology and cytopathology in some order, but they don't really care the order, they could apply to both of those types of fellowships, and then rank, perhaps a GYN program one, a Cyto program two, a GYN program three, a Cyto program four, and, kind of let the match that first year determine what order they're going to do it in. And that would be fine, and it would certainly be much easier. And then we talked about the couples match. If you have two residents who want to go into different subspecialties, the NRMP would allow them to actually do that couples match functionality, over time, where you would be able to, make that work.
There are two new questions in the
Mhm.
chat. One that I'm not sure I understand personally, how
Yeah.
early and how late that would miss the match timeline.
Mhm.
So I think I understand. I think it's asking about because that popped up just as we were talking about the match resetting.
Mhm.
Um, so for a given fellowship year, right? So for 28-29, the match happens on May 2027. You may not offer positions before, outside of that rank, until the match is over. Once the match is over on May 1st, then immediately you can start offering for 2028, and that opportunity to offer outside a match continues all the way up until um, presumptively
July
sometime in
1st, the
July of
starting date.
2028. You probably don't want to go too much past July 1st, but you could make it work even into mid-July or early August, probably, if you're creative about it. And then so then the reset would be for the 29-30 season, you would be back on a match, presuming the specialty decides to go back to a match in the subsequent year.
Mhm.
Another one. Why is the match day late in April? That's abstract time for ASC. Was this on purpose? Not driven by us. It's not our choice. It's NRMP driven and decided. So they don't know about abstract time.
Mm.
Mhm.
They
For
probably,
ASC.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I will say
So
that the reason pathology matches May 1st is that forensics, the first specialty to go to match, um, wanted it to be as close to the existing cycle as possible. But NRMP does not allow matches more than 14 months out. The reason for that is that they find that there are too many withdrawals from commitments if you make offers more than 14 months out, which is what we have proven in real life in the pathology community. Um, and so that was the earliest date that was possible. And forensics chose that because we all went so early, they didn't want to be any later than they had to be. I am personally of the opinion that we would do even better in terms of reducing the number of accept and then
Withdraw.
withdraw
Mhm.
if we push that closer to the job timeline.
Yeah.
And if we moved to
Yeah.
somewhere more in the order of, I think you have to stay away from the residency recruitment timeline, but I think if we were making match day close to the beginning of residency recruitment so that it fell in the fall of fourth year, giving folks roughly 9 months, that would line up very nicely with when people are out looking for jobs and can make an informed decision. Am I going after a job or am I going after a fellowship? And would give a much shorter timeline to withdrawal. And I will say that, internal medicine and pediatrics, for example, their matches are December of their last year of residency. So about 6 to 7 months
Yeah.
before the start, and it works just fine for them. And I
Yeah.
think I think my personal preference would be that, as I think we got to take what we've got right now, but my preference would be that we
Be
work
pushing.
toward coordinating over time as we bring more specialties into this to push that
Yeah.
more toward fall of fourth year rather than spring of third year.
Yes. So Dr. Bain has the hand raised. So Marina, please.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. I really hope this comes through this time. I'm a huge advocate of this system. My question is, for institutions with lots of fellowship options offered, especially those with SurgePath, we often think about, dual fellowships. A lot of candidates think that they might do a SurgePath and a subspecialty, a cyto and a subspecialty. That would require, is it possible to do through the match system? And the reason I'm asking is because that would essentially require commitment, 2 consecutive years, one of which is not technically in that match timeline.
Mhm. Yep. So there are two ways to handle that. There's the formal and the informal way. The informal way would be, we talked about the internal applicant pathway where you just say verbally, you would say, for anyone who's, wanting 2 years of fellowships, that we would say that if you match into our surgical pathology fellowship, we're prepared to also give you a commitment that will rank you to match for the subsequent fellowship. That's the informal way. That works fine as long as both halves of the fellowship that works fine anyway. If both halves of the fellowship are participating in match, there's another approach you can use. I had talked about tracks in the pricing scheme. You can create tracks. It's a little harder to do, but if you know you're going to have a SurgePath, Cytopath, 2 consecutive year fellowship, you can create a track for that and specifically recruit into that through match as a 2 year commitment. The downside there is you have one person who wants Surge Pass Cyto, one person who wants Surge Pass Breath, one person who wants Surge Pass something else. You either have to create a separate track for each of those and then create a separate rank list for each of those, or you can't really use that method. So the tracking can be useful for some programs, particularly if you have a well-defined, this is the combination of two fellowships that we do, and we always recruit for this position. The tracking system would work really well for that. For most others, I think it's more likely that the informal, we would, if you end up matching to our surgical program, we would also offer you a rank to match position. You have to be careful about that to make sure you're offering only as many people as you have space for that, so you're not accidentally offering something you can't actually deliver on. But that would be the way to protect the fellows from being forced to suddenly go move after 1 year of fellowship. That's not what they want.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So there were a couple questions regarding the application process. If applicants need to be sent the application materials directly to the program, and if there is any talk in using errors for that. Do you want to take it, Paul? I think that's...
Yeah, so Forensics is now moving toward ERIS Common Application because their applicants have asked for that. My understanding in cytopathology is that you all are just trying to get this match off the ground this year, and that would be something to loop back around to discuss in the future. The cost to applicants of ERAS is very low. It is much more convenient for applicants. It's somewhat more convenient for programs. For most programs, I think a lot of programs have kind of built or purchased institutional software that is not necessarily as compatible with ERAS, and so they may be difficult for everyone to adopt that. But I definitely think it's something that residents like.
Yeah. One more question says, we do not have many applicants to apply for interview. Is any risk that we may not get anyone in the match? And so far we've been lucky. And I will remind everyone that the pool of applicants will never fill all of the programs that we have available, regarding of what process we follow, right? So there will be programs that will be unfilled regardless of common timeline, nothing, or match. So we have to remember that our denominator does not cover everyone to begin with. So there's always a risk that you will not match and you will not fill. However, even if you do not match, you still have opportunities to fill after the match, as we've discussed. So you still have a chance. So the match doesn't preclude you from from filling your spots. It just helps everyone, including the applicants themselves.
Yeah, what I would add to that is that what the match does accomplish, it can't add more applicants necessarily, although I do think over time pushing the timeline back may help cytology. But it better matches applicants to the programs they want to be in. And so if you feel you're offering a high quality program and you can sell applicants coming through on the high quality of your program, the match should be advantageous to you because you will get more ears on your pitch for why your program is an excellent program. That doesn't, it doesn't mean everybody's going to fill every year. That's just not the reality we're living in anymore in pathology at the present. But I think it provides, if you feel confident that you're offering a good product, you're going to get more ears on your pitch for why your fellowship is a worthwhile one.
There is a question regarding the time frame for the interview. So if we move to the match for 28-29, so interviews ideally would start with, leave this up to the program, sometime December. That will be January. We don't have to send the match rank. We would not have to send the rank until April, if I'm understanding correctly, mid-April. So you can decide, this time, time like holidays, and if you want to interview. And so for the coming match for 2027, 28 for the programs that are participating, HemePath and Molecular Path, breast, GYN, the match day is on the April 29. So the interviews would not be until very late this year, the earliest, and then January, February 26, recruiting for 28, 29.
Eva, I guess I just got to jump in to say I've got a hard stop at 1.
Please.
I'm gonna have to go.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I really appreciate you all listening to me today,
Thanks, Paul.
and thanks for your time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. We have a few more questions, but there's a question regarding people that are not currently in residency, their pathologist training elsewhere, if they could participate on the match. And if I understand correctly, NRMP does not look at the credentials of the candidate. That's your program. So whoever you would accept normally for your program can be part of your ranking list. So if you don't offer to a certain, for example, visa status, then you wouldn't put that person on your rank list. So your program will veto or go through the credentials, and whoever fulfills your requirements can be on your list. Jamie has kindly added the link for the survey for the vote. I hope that everybody will take the time and vote. Otherwise, you will also be receiving a formal email. I'm hoping that we'll have the ability to have this session available on the website with a link for the ones that did not participate and would like. Again, we want to thank everybody that took the time during the during their work day to participate. Dr. Booth to be here, Jamie for the support, everybody for what they do for education. And we will be following up, and both Frida and I are available on our emails, by phone, if we can help to answer further questions. And wishing everybody a happy holiday, and let's vote.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you. Happy holidays, everyone.
The link is available and you will get an email from us.